IVM.
This is Audio Gyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. Welcome to a brand new series of Audio Gyan, Where Are the Designers? It's a 12-part series featuring few of the top influential design leaders in India, talking about their process, hiring, challenges, and finding and retaining talent. And also some tips for young designers to make a cut after they apply. I'm also happy to introduce Abhineet Tiwari as my co-host for this series. He used to head the design team at Gojek, and he's still at Gojek. Hey, Abhineet, thanks for joining in.
Hey, Kedar, glad to be here. Excited to shoot our second episode.
Yeah. Today we have Harish Sivaramakrishnan with us on Audio Gyan. Harish heads the design team at Cred. Previously, he's worked at Freecharge, Google, Myntra, and Adobe. He's also lead vocalist and a founder of Carnatic rock band called Agam, and has been touring all along for last 13 years. So welcome, Harish. I think you need no introduction for the people in the world of design, especially in the Indian ecosystem. So yeah, welcome to Audio Gyan.
Thank you, Kedar. Thank you, Abhineet. Nice meeting you all. And that's very gracious on your part. Very happy to be talking to you all today. Very excited. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool. So this episode, we have slightly made a twist because it's a series. I can be much more experimental with it, and we've thought of having like a rapid fire round with you first, and we'll mind you, we are noting down the answers that you give, and we'll pick it up in the longer format question.
Okay, sure.
Cool. So let's start. There are about 10 questions, so you have to pick one: music or design.
Music.
Bala Murali Krishnan or MS Subbalakshmi.
Bala Murali Krishna.
Team offsite or tours, your gigs and tours?
Tough one. Team offsites.
Oh, that's quite okay. So while hiring, what do you look for? Aptitude or attitude?
Good attitude.
Okay. Favorite instrument?
Harmonium.
And favorite singer, Indian?
Hariharan.
Okay. And I believe you have a Harley Davidson, so I just thought I'll ask this: Harley Davidson or Trump?
I have a Harley Davidson, so Harley Davidson.
Okay. Okay. This one is going to be a tough one. What does design mean to you in one word?
Expression.
Okay. And what does art mean to you in one word?
Expression.
Oh, nice. That's going to be interesting. Skeuomorphism or neomorphism?
Neither.
Hey, that's not correct. Are you considering your entire career or just at Cred?
Look, for me, surfaces come and go. I think for me, the surfaces and things that you interact with are transient. So skeuomorphic systems, neomorphic systems, flat systems may be combined, composite systems. They all have their place, but I don't think I make a choice basis that. I mean, it's like a spring collection versus a summer collection for me. I don't wear my winter clothes during summer. I don't wear my summer clothes during winter. So it's hard to ask whether you like summer clothes all your life or winter clothes all your life. For me, surfaces are meant to change, and that keeps the excitement going. That keeps the freshness going. So for me, it's a bit like fashion. So I think about it like that.
Yeah, very interesting take. Cool. Abhineet, you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
So that was it. So that was the rapid fire round.
That was a kind one.
It's just a warm up.
I was expecting a harder one. Maybe that is gonna come right now. But anyway, thanks. That was fun.
Sure. So Harish, let's start with the long answers. The first thing is, let's look at the past a little. How long have you been in design? And do you remember when was the first time that you had to hire your first designer?
Yeah, so I think I started my career as a JavaScript programmer, subsequently became a Flash ActionScript programmer, and then subsequently became a JavaScript programmer. So most of my career is that of a front-end engineer. I'm a JavaScript developer. That is where my heart is. That is where most of my experience is. That's where I claim to have skills in. And the good part of being a front-end engineer was that I spent a ton of time with designers. And I also had the unique fortune of being in Adobe for a long time, early in my career. And most of the stuff that I built were for designers. As an engineer, my customers were designers. So a good part of my life was spent with them. So the lines are sort of blurring. When did I actually start claiming I'm a designer? Even today, I'm a little cautious with respect to claiming that I'm a designer. I typically consider myself a great ally for designers who has great respect for the subject, great respect for the discipline that is design, great respect for the craft they bring in, and great respect for what designers really bring into the world of digital as well as non-digital solutions that we use every day. So for me, I am an ally, a firm ally, and I am somebody that will want to go the extra mile to make sure that what can be imagined can eventually be built. So I am the person that built my career building stuff designers imagined. And that is my background. Even today, I think in code. I'm not a very design tools person. Most of my design tool experience also has been mostly writing code for the tools and not necessarily working on the tools. So, I mean, at the risk of sounding whatever, I don't really claim to be a designer in the true sense. I'm a pretty able front-end engineer. And being an ally to designers, being somebody who deeply understands them, and somebody who has a passion for what designers are creating across the world, I think I'm a good fit working with designers. So that's how my career has been. This is my 20th year. Yeah, no, it's my 19th year. So about 10 years I have done design in some form or the other. Prior to that, I was too junior to be claiming to be doing anything. So I was just doing what was asked of me. So when did I first hire my designer? I hired my first designer, true designer in 2012, 8 years ago. That's when I hired my first designer, truly. Otherwise, most of the people whom I hired were largely programmers who had a flair for design.
Yeah.
Like mostly guys who will do UI and CSS, not necessarily on a design tool.
I should have. Yeah, please go on.
Sorry, actually, I should have rephrased the question: code or music?
Music.
So go ahead, Avinit, you were saying something.
Yeah, I relate so hard to that, Harish. Like I started as an engineer as well, and yeah, I'm still hesitant to call myself a designer as well. So relate with you all along the way.
Yep.
But I want to double click on that everlasting imposter syndrome, right? Like when you say that you're still not comfortable calling yourself a designer, has it become more comfortable over the years, or does it never go away?
No, I have gotten better. I think you learn all the way. I think you meet people. You meet design itself is such a wide canvas, and you meet designers from different abilities, different state of minds, and different worldviews, different perspectives. And there are several spectrums of designers that I've been fortunate to meet, interact with, and sometimes work closely with, sometimes manage, sometimes be managed. So through the years, I think it has genuinely helped me learn and understand the field much better. And like probably what was asked in the in the rapid fire, it's a question of having the right attitude in my head. I have the right attitude to learn about design and acquire, rather than claiming to be somebody who was born with the right aptitude and right skill and craft to be a designer from the word go. I'm not that person.
Sure.
I think most of my skills that I claim to have today have been acquired by just keeping my eyes and ears open, having the right degree of curiosity, and having a strong belief that design is important. I think the most important trait I have acquired through the years is a firm belief that design is very important. Like, I mean, and I have very unpopular opinions about how design is important within designers themselves. But through the years, that's one thing which I've learned. It's a very important part of living. I think you need to have good design no matter what you're doing. So
Sure.
Interesting.
that helps me hang in there and learn and, get better at it, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a perpetual imposter syndrome. I do aspire to a day when I'm actually pretty good at design, but is today that day? I don't think so.
Sure.
Well, it's
Kedar.
it's going to be interesting to in the later part of the thing, because we would like to poke this question further, as in poke this answer further.
Absolutely.
Cool. So sticking to the theme, it's mainly to So the series is mainly to understand what are your challenges with hiring and with retaining talent. So if we can start off by also you telling us how does it work at different companies you have worked with. You have worked with Adobe and like a early age startup and different places, right? So how do you create that pool? I mean, does the HR help you in creating the talent pool? Do you headhunt? And plus, you being in the music space, I usually call this when I was in ClearTrip, there are different mafias, right? There's a housing mafia and then different mafias. And what I like to call this is that it's typically like Sanjay Leela Bansali shooting with the same set of cameramen and art directors and stuff like that. So you carry and poach your older designers, or how does the hiring process overall work?
Sure. Very relatable. No, so I think, truth be said, I think what I have learned through my years hiring and as well as being hired in companies is that to hire right, you need to understand the line of business that you are in and innately the space that you are in and what is it that you are trying to achieve. So the way Adobe hired designers, or for that matter, the way Adobe hired front-end engineers is and continues to be very different from the way Myntra hired its designers, and from the way I hired at FreeCharge, and from the way I hired at Google. It's a very different story altogether. And from the way I have hired at Cred. So what I've learned is it is important to not have like one single worldview that's going to probably kill my ability to build good teams, because I'm just using that one trick of mine, one hack of mine, that this is how I hire, these are the people I will work with. Truth be said, I think I am very passionate about designing with a certain degree of purpose, and my purpose is what defines my hiring style. So my purpose when I was hiring at FreeCharge is very different from the purpose that I'm hiring at Cred for. So I do have some overlapping designers whom I really like working with, who work with me at FreeCharge, but the larger proportion did not come from my earlier network. I would have, if I was doing a similar company like FreeCharge for whatever reason, it's highly likely that I would have still tapped into the same talent pool of people that worked with me, who have a certain sync with me, who have a certain degree of understanding of how I work and whatnot. But Cred, speaking because it is the most recent and the recency bias kicks in, Cred is the most pertinent hiring that I'm doing right now is for my current job. It follows a very different tangent from how I have hired for my previous companies, and I have reasons to do what I do at Cred. So short answer is everybody has helped me. Like, for a company like Google, I think the recruiters source really good profiles because Google has a certain way of hiring people, and there are certain parameters that are very non-negotiable at Google. And it's very hard to just poach people from your network because they by themselves would be great designers, but in the grand scheme of things and the overall framework that Google operates in, it may be just very hard to place them. It does not mean Google designers are superior or a person who did not clear the Google interview is any inferior. I don't believe in that kind of a division. I think it's only true that Google looks for a certain kind broadly, and some people belong there and some people don't, and some people sort of mold themselves into it. So I think Google is one company that I firmly work with only recruiters. I think recruiters figured out, and they were great people, like whoever I got a chance to hire, phenomenal people, phenomenally talented people. Some of the best researchers I have worked in, like in terms of qualitative research, if you may. The 2.5 years that I was in Google, I learned a lot from them. Junior people, nevertheless, but phenomenally good research talent that I found in Google, which I've not found elsewhere in the startup network as much as I have. Speaking about, so the short answer for me is all pools are available. I try to not straitjacket myself into a style of working, because if I applied the ethos I had at Google when I was doing design at Google to Cred, I think I would have failed. Not trying to suggest that I have succeeded, but the counter is true. Irrespective of whether I'm successful or not right now in material, I am fairly certain if I applied the same heuristic, I would have failed. So at least I am at a place where now it's sort of on the balance. We can argue both ways, whether there's some success, some failure, but it's not been a colossal failure. So I think I am more driven by what is it that I need to do to hire my people. And that's how I go about it. And largely, like you said, networks are great, mafias are great. People that work well with each other are great. If good people can bring good people, why not? That's the best way to hire. So I'm always tapping on people that I trust to bring people that they trust, and them bringing people that they trust, and then we're good. So I think I don't think my methods aren't very maverick, or they're not innately very different. I think it's very standard. I know at least a dozen more design leaders doing pretty similar. So I think nothing to claim there.
That's a nice segue, Harish, because you touched on referrals, and that's kind of the next topic we wanted to touch on. So while Kedar and me were researching, we figured out people seem to have very strong opinions on referrals. I think the most extreme take I heard was somebody equating referrals to nepotism. Right. Do you have a point of view on that? Like, have referrals worked for you better, or like any point of view on this?
Referrals have worked for me at 100th percentile efficiency all my career. And here is my view on referrals. If you have hired the first person in your team with the following characteristics, in my opinion: a belief in the journey, a belief in his or her own skills, and an innate personality that oozes integrity. Anybody with a high degree of integrity and belief in the journey will not bring a person that he or she believes is not suitable to take that journey forward. Like, I might have a best friend who is looking for a job, and I might have a role open in my company. If I don't think that person can take my journey forward, I wouldn't bring him. I would just tell him, like, I'm going to find you and I'm going to refer you into 5 other companies, but not into mine, because I don't think you are the right person for what I am trying to do over here. So I have been fortunate in my career to get people who have referred people with such conviction that they seem to be great people. Like, they just brought people that they thought would augment their journey, who would make them most successful, who would make this whole pursuit and purpose of actually working in a particular organization more successful and more meaningful. I think people who have that personality to find that gratification in the work that they're doing, not just about the referral bonuses and not just about bringing a cartel of people that just can create a small little mini empire. Referrals of that nature typically backfire. I have seen them in my career, like, people just bringing their kith and kin. And if you're talking about it that way, then of course it might amount to nepotism. But if you're actually bringing somebody with conviction that he or she would augment your journey to achieve something that you are setting out to do, I think referrals work fantastic. And the only other criticism that I have typically seen is the whole likeness bias, similarity bias kicking in. I wouldn't deny it. I'm a 0 to 1 person. I do not appreciate anything that is. I will quit when it is 10 to 100. I can do 0 to 1, 1 to 10 is okay. 10 to 100, I'm gone. So for 0 to 1, 1 to 10, likeness bias is a good thing, because it will remove a lot of things that is required, which will come in the way of agility. If you have way too many people with too many contrarian views in terms of working, contrarian views in terms of design is fine, but contrarian views in terms of the principles and philosophies and ideologies for a 0 to 1 is very painful.
Yeah.
I would not want to spend 30% of my life convincing people. Like, I'd like to, it's almost like going to war. Then if you tell somebody to shoot, then people should feel it's important to shoot. Like, so for me, similarity bias in 0 to 1 is okay.
Sure.
I sometimes even encourage it.
Sure.
But for a 10 to 100, not so much, because when companies scale and stabilize, you need very diverse perspectives, because scaling from 0 to 1 is the easiest, because you have only so much to lose. When you are at 10 to 100, the risk of actually doing stupid stuff just because you thought so is significantly higher. The good part for me, Abhineet, is that I'm typically gone when it is 10 to 100. So never really face that.
Yeah, interesting.
That's an incredible amount of clarity, Harish. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it makes a hell of a lot of sense, right? When you don't know which way the roadmap's gonna go, at least the ideology and philosophy being in sync would have something to keep people together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
very, very interesting perspective there. Going further, what's the typical hiring process like? If you want to stick to cred, it's fine. But if you want to just tell any pattern, or how has it changed? And this question will also have a flair of front-end engineers as well now, because you said like you are like at a core, like a coder. So you can touch upon that as well.
I'm super grateful you're asking it that way, because it's always nice to reflect as well. As I speak about this, I'm fairly confident I'll also reflect on what I'm saying, which will also probably help me solidify some of what I've been doing. So I will speak generically first for a short while. I have taken jobs on the basis of one thing, Kedar and Abhineet. I mean, I think I need a sense of purpose, and I need gratification at the end of it. And secondly, as you guys already know, I'm a musician. I'm deeply affected by lack of applause. Like, I need the cheer.
Sure.
Lack of cheer makes it very hard for me. I'm being very candid and as honest as I can be in a conversation like this. So any job that does not have innately scope for cheer is not for me. So in my career, I'll never work for enterprise.
Sure. Yeah, artists need some vanity.
I can't work for enterprise because workflows don't excite me. Domains don't excite me. I like small problems. So almost all jobs I take are small problems. The moment they become big problems, I typically ask my bosses to find a guy who likes big problems. See, I can't fix for the whole of Bangalore. I like fixing my street. I'll fix my street. I'll plant trees. I'll put the best quality asphalt. I'll put the best water fountain. I'll have the best lighting, but it's only my street. I'm that person. And that's how I enjoy my design. That's how I enjoy my problems. So anything that touches 500 million people is a very discomforting problem for me. I wouldn't be there. So most of the problems that I've taken, most of companies that I work in and have been moderately successful are companies which are not very high-touch, high-scale companies, with the exception of Google. But in Google also, I didn't have a high-scale job. The product I was building was a 1.0, and most of what I got to do were still very experimental in nature. So having that said, I hire for that need. Like, so for instance, I have, truth be said, this will become, it's a controversial. I have said this wherever I've said this. I have typically either gotten dragged onto the street and beaten to pulp, but I'll say it again. I am yet to join a place where qualitative insights have trumped quantitative insights. Not one job I have done has given me enough qualitative insights that I base my life on them. It is not a problem with qualitative research. The problems are very simple. They're very well defined. When I was building FreeCharge, you punch in your phone number, choose your operator, enter your amount, and choose a payment option. I won't hire researchers. I'm not going to run surveys. I don't need to. It's a solved problem. And if for a problem of that nature, you claim to be a designer and can't apply your instincts, I will question that designer's existence. So my typical point is, unless I'm building something so greenfieldy, so hard that I have no idea about it. For example, if I'm creating a self-driving bike, hypothetically, I will hire only researchers.
Sure.
As in, I have no idea how that shit works. But if somebody is asking me to build a credit card payment platform, I honestly do not require UX researchers. I require market researchers. I require product market fit people. I require a feature set spec definition around qualitatively. So my hiring is simply following a trail of what is the problem that I'm solving. So my last 3 jobs have been simple problems, if you may. The complexity is in the execution of it. And I worked at Myntra, and I'm still very fond of the person I worked with. Jayavant Tiwari was the design head, somebody whom I deeply look up to, somebody who I'm very indebted to in my design learning, and somebody who has from time and again helped me. It is wrong if I don't name him in conversations like this. So at Myntra, at FreeCharge, my problems have been simple. I think the solutions that needed to be done were where all the challenges lied. So I typically hire looking at how can you create design as a moat for a problem that everybody will find it very easy to solve. Like, FreeCharge, Paytm was already solving it. MobiKwik was solving it. Recharge It Now was solving it. I kind of dozen guys were solving it. Amazon was solving it. I think Flipkart solved it at some point in time. Snapdeal was solving it. Everybody wanted to get recharge commerce. I just have to look around to know what everybody is doing. So I don't typically deploy research in jobs like that. So
no, I think
yeah.
Sorry to cut you, but it's not that controversial, because I somehow relate to it, and I put it in other way, because even when I was in Book My Show, we had a team of user researchers who eventually moved on because I was not really. So there are 2 problems to it. One was they used to do a massive amount of research, but how do you translate that research into the actual product roadmap? That's one challenge.
Yep.
And second is, buying a ticket is not a
Exactly.
like nothing like crazy out there, right? The way I put it is like, if you're designing a cockpit, sure, I'll have a designer.
Absolutely, man.
So,
Very well said. Yeah, no, and my problem is, if you don't know how a user would buy a ticket without researching, you should quit. That's what I told myself. If I don't know how a person recharges without actually speaking to 20 people that recharge, I think I'm overpaid.
No, but it's also there's also a counter point to it, which is, you said you have always worked in 0 to 1 or 0 to 10 kind of a model. Typically, researchers come in when the product is stable, there's a product market fit, and then you want to go into the nuances, right? So maybe the researcher kind of a person kicks in for this 100 to 1,000 kind of a range.
Possibly.
Maybe Abhinit, you have dealt with those kind of situations. You have any insights?
I agree with, I don't think it's controversial because Harish has qualified it really well, right? He's not making a blanket statement that UX researchers are useless, right?
I would never say that, because I have learned so much from researchers at Google, where the problem required a ton of understanding of what users were doing. So pulling it back, I typically have a problem with designers. It's a problem. It's just probably something that has solidified in me for the longest of time, because I was not a designer. Most of the times I was the guy who was implementing design that is given to me. I don't like to work with people who don't have an end mile perspective. So to that sense, I don't work with wireframers ever. See, for me, the first qualification is good visual design ability. I am uncomfortable putting my budget on somebody who can wireframe. I find people who have great flair to problem solve, great flair to whiteboard, great flair to create lo-fi wireframes to tell a story. I immediately take that guy and refer him to a product manager. My problem is, it doesn't come out of designer budget. If you are a designer, you speak in colors, pixels, kerning, letter spacing, margins, and the aesthetic. That's almost like music critic versus musician. That's the argument I always give. A lot of people can speak about music, and some people sing. And people that speak about music are sometimes more capable than the singer himself. You will see a lot of them. Some people who actually theorize music, but I can't put him on stage. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's the place. So I want people whom I can put on stage. So I'm comfortable if you don't understand Hicks law. I'm comfortable if you can't quote 20 other signs, but if you can look at a screen by saying wo 15 pixel off hai, I tend to hire that guy, because I generally believe that somehow in the current realm of the world, craft is pretty underrated. Even design schools actually think craft is sort of an afterthought, and craft is not required. So I'm craft first. I typically think any graphic designer can be taught UX design. And somebody who just claims to be this wireframe guy can never really create good visual design. So my problem is, for me, visual designers are a superior breed of designers. I am not one. A lot of people confuse me for saying that because I'm a visual designer, can't save my life to drop a shadow and sketch. I can do that in CSS. But I do think visual designers are more crafty and more capable to become better UXers than UXers eventually putting that effort to go and become visual designers. So for me, my hiring has perpetually remained, when I have hiring, is you need to have shit on Dribble. Even if it is a copy of Cuberto, even if it is a copy of UNO, if it's a copy of Paper Pillar, I don't care. You have put that effort to copy somebody's mock and make it look exactly like that, you are more likely to be hired by me than somebody who puts mug shots of post-it notes on the screen and a whole bunch of flowchart. I have probably 3 minutes to look at your profile. And by third important step in design, I'm not very interested in your process. Actually, it is very boring to know your process. I'm interested in your outcome. You want to do card sorting, do it. You want to do FGD, you do it. You want to probably go and sit in third wave coffee roasters and draw on a whiteboard, do it. Bring me back principle. When you give it to me, I want to click it. If it clicks, it makes sense, I'll take it. If it doesn't click, you go back, you apply your process again. So in my interviews, I don't give any preference to somebody's design process. And the second one that I'm very confused is, I meet a lot of electrician plumber personas, which makes it very hard for me to hire. And those people I try to keep out. What I mean by electrician plumber persona is not to demean electricians and plumbers. They're very important. I can't fix a tap. I can't fix a tube light. So they're very important. And if my flush is leaking, I can't fix my flush. And it's crazy. And they're a very important part of the fulcrum. But my problem is I am not doing an electrician problem. I don't have a plumbing problem. So people who actually come and say innately design is about solving problems, that's hitting it very, very low. I don't want designers who come and say I'm excited by problems. People who are excited by problems are either like people who actually see a problem and fix a problem and move on. I want artisans. I want people to say there's a shitty looking building. I'll break it and build it into a brutalist architecture monolith. I want people who say that. Like, that is when you have purpose being called a designer. Otherwise, you're largely like a technician. You know what I mean? I am that technician. Like, I am the front-end engineer. I have lived all my life as a technician because I don't know what somebody gives me a blueprint and I have to code that up. So this hardening has happened to me. There's no right and wrong in it. It's just that I'm 41 years old right now and I have been given the privilege to hire. So I hire people who actually think that every problem is an architecture problem. Every problem is a monument problem. Every problem is a ceramic coating of your BMW problem. So I like people who operate and think like that. That does not mean they won't solve problems. I think many of these guys solve problems pretty eloquently as well. They can actually think UX. They can do a lot of these things really well. So that is something that I focus on. And I ask one question in all my interviews. I don't ask it directly. If anybody who asks me, why do we really need it, I typically don't hire that person. I mean, it is a big red flag for me. Any individual who asks me the question, why do we really need this?
Sure. Harish, could you be more specific? Like, what do you mean by this?
See, for example, I throw absurdities at people. Like, you have all the time in the world. And there's an absurd problem. I mean, I'm just giving you, and you want to go from Domlur to Koramangala. Would you take a Rapido or would you take an S-Class? I typically can't hire the guy who says Rapido because he will never build anything great. क्योंकि इतना यूटिलिटेरियन है, इतना कन्वीनियंस ड्रिवन है कि लाइफ के कोई फिनिश उसको चमकेगा नहीं. I want to say the guy who says the S-Class, even if it takes 10 minutes more. That is the guy who will come and innately make a change. And that is a personality I look for. I think it's almost like, see, you don't hire somebody who looks at a BMW 7 Series and asks kitna deti. That guy will never be able to design anything nice. Like, क्योंकि perspective ही इतना utilitarian है कि मतलब इतना बड़ा गाड़ी रख के क्या फायदा, mileage कम देता होगा. The perspective itself does not have mileage. Like, if somebody has made the choice to buy a large as Hummer, he probably has already traveled to the mileage conundrum a lot later. It's not even part of the problem. So when I hire for cred, I am not building credit card payments, right? वो करने के लिए Google छोड़ के नहीं आएगा मैं. तो fact, ठीक है, just being very candid.
Yeah.
So I don't want utilitarian thinking at all. Like, utilitarian thinking actually puts my entire plan into tatters. Like, I am that guy who says, like, credit score, credit bureau hit करते समय animation चला देना, वो वाला आदमी है मैं. यहाँ पे animation करने की क्या जरूरत है? Text में जैसे copy के A/B tests करते हैं. I won't hire that guy.
Yeah. Like, how do you explain, for example, like we all love products with incredible details in them, right? High level of craftsmanship. I had this argument with somebody just a few months ago. I wanted something to parallax with the gyroscope. Right? It's a stupid, silly thing, but that shows you that it gives another dimension to the design, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
like,
my thing is like so needs are too average. In my opinion, we all have needs.
Sure.
I think you have to optimize for wants. Like, we all work hard. We all do what we do because we have wants. I am not living for my needs. If I were living for my needs, I would have become a monk by now because my needs are very simple. I need to wake up, I need to get a breakfast. I need to play with my daughter. I have, through my life, bought a house for myself. I have a car to drive. My needs are done. But my wants are ridiculously crazy. What drives me is my wants. And I like people who have wants. I like people who are innately satisfied. People are hard to work with in design. So, like, satisfaction is the enemy. Like, इतना काफी नहीं है, कुछ और चाहिए वाले लोगों को लाना है डिजाइन में. Like, satisfied जनता ना लोगों को satisfy करने में लग जाएगी. Like, what I mean?
Like if you were to start a hotel, you are not going for Oyo rooms. You're going for Grand Hyatt or something like that. Right?
No, I'll go for postcard. Have you ever stayed with them?
I've looked at their website and know about it, but I haven't stayed.
Go for postcard because the scale is very small. यार हयात का scale ज़्यादा है, उतना करेगा नहीं मैं. मेरे को 10 रूम करने का है.
Sure.
लेकिन 25,000 में बेचेगा.
Sure. Makes sense. Makes complete sense. And see, Harish, like there are lots of things which I could fight with you on or argue with you, but as long as you qualify it, it makes complete sense.
You know, that's funny. What's funny, it's just a perspective. And honestly, I do not think it is broadly applicable. It is not a broad brushstroke. You know what I mean? I am just molding my career because I have a certain privilege today to do what I like. Like, you know, probably a kid who is 2 years into the industry won't speak like me because that privilege is acquired through years due to some of the chance accidents and luck and the experience that you gained. I am sitting at a place where I can say whatever that I want, right? Like, you know, life is not the same for everyone. You have to work in diverse sort of environments and diverse perspective and thinking to be able to get to a place of clarity. I think I'm just sitting at a position of privilege to say this shit. That's my opinion.
No, and I would like to add to that is that it's actually what you're saying is also quite Indian in nature. I mean, straight lines and minimal design and cleanliness and all is sort of after the Bauhaus movement. It's just been there in the Europe, that style, right? But we at I'm not comparing it with like Jaipur architecture or kind of a thing, but it's still ornamentation. It's just taking the base to a different level altogether. Now, be it digitally, be it with animation or stuff like that, it's the principle remains the same, right? Is that a correct understanding?
Look, I agree. What you're saying is true. It is very, very true. But I look at very interesting parallels. And I'm a South Indian. I grew up all my life in South India. The first ever time I took a train and went to the north of the country is for engineering. I left when I was 18, and for the first ever time, I landed in a land which was very different from what I had seen. I spoke only Malayalam. I had zero English skills, did not speak a word of Hindi, couldn't speak. I speak more languages right now. What I learned through my years traveling across the country is that Indians like opulence. The problem is lack of taste. The classy ones with money actually go really classy. There are two kinds. Like the people, there are things that money can buy. When the classy guys make money, they go super classy. Then the ones who just chance accident may Amir ban gaya, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I just won a super lotto. It's very hard to build. It's taste is something which you acquire, you hang out with people, you learn, you unlearn, you look at other systems. And so you see a lot of gaudy and you see a lot of classy. But the point is, you can pick and choose sides. Like, you know, when I was speaking to my colleagues in the US, many of them would come, like there was a researcher that came, it was funny. He showed up with a white kurta and a blue jeans with a colored shawl and said, "Main SP Road pe research karne ja raha hai." He was nobody dresses like that in India. Like that's only in Coldplay videos and probably in confused Hollywood movies which want to miscast India as a country which is Diwali and Holi every day. Like, you know, you'll actually see pretty clumsy shops over there with no real arrangement. And what happened is that researcher came back and said, Indians like this. It was funny. I sat through the research presentation and they took SP Road, Chickpet as an example and said, यहाँ पे लोगों को clutter पसंद है. My point is, लोगों को clutter पसंद नहीं है. They just don't know better. Like, you know, put that guy in UB City and ask him to shop for the same thing at the same price, wo UB City mein kharidega. I can promise you that the same bootleg stuff that you're buying in SP Road, no, like your phone ka screen toot gaya, you go to SP Road in Bangalore and they'll give you a fresh screen. The same screen is sold in UB City in an air-conditioned store at the same price, or maybe even like, you know, marginal. The person will come and buy. The point is, we are so constructed to be utilitarian कि मतलब भाई साहब adjust कर लेना, like ना 3-seater में 4 लोग बैठेंगे, 4 8-seat में 5 लोग बैठेंगे. That is not, and our design culture has become that कि उसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा green or red or purple paint मार दो, then you have the Indian design ethos. I've seen so many people say that कि India में clutter चलता है क्योंकि Indians like clutter. That's a bullshit logic.
Arey, Harish, I live in Indonesia. I design for products here. And there's so many Chinese apps that we look at, right? And people make the same stereotype and generalization about, you know, see, design is design.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Simplicity is a virtue. Taste is a, you know, thing that a designer should have. And people try to claim this in different ways that, hey, for the Chinese, the clutter is, you know, important. And it's like, that's not how human brains work. Like
exactly. True. That absolutely true. Absolutely true. Like, you know, somebody told me the Thailand example. यहाँ पे पूरा neon है. I said, have you walked that street? Neon नहीं है तो board नहीं दिखेगा. It's not like neon में passion है इनका. You know, everything has been there because they had to do dhanda. मतलब इतने छोटे 10 square feet के छोटे छोटे दुकान है. Like there's a shops are like 10 square feet. Your board has to be neon, bro.
Sure.
If you put a very classy embossed soft plastic board which has got like a soft light up, you have to be an upscale street for that board to be seen. Where 10 square feet dukan mein, you have to put a neon. That does not mean Thai people like neon only. It's almost like taking the Mumbai local train example and saying that is the commute India needs. No, that's not true.
Hey, on that note, we'll be right back.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, legendary music composer Anu Malik joins Cyrus to share tales from his fascinating Bollywood career. On Filter Coffee, Avinash Pant of Facebook discusses the changes he sees in the creator ecosystem. If you're interested in the Pegasus pirate scandal, do check out All Things Policy as they dive deep into India's cybersecurity capabilities. On Nan Curry, the guys host Tanveer Lad, international badminton player and host of the Millennial Athlete. They discuss what kind of food is available at the Olympics, an athlete's diet, and a whole lot more. And on This Round is on Me, learn about the Indian news media from Lakshmi, founder of Splainer Media. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. That's really helpful for us. And finally, we'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Siet Cred, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber. We really do appreciate the support.
All right. So we are back here again.
You need to strive for better. But to bring this back on the hiring track, Nimish, I want to pick on something you said in the rapid fire, which was you'd pick attitude over aptitude. I see that from a lot of people me and Kedar have talked to. But judging attitude, I personally find it to be a double-edged sword. So this is a two-part question. One, do you have any tips or tricks to share with us on how do you go about finding that philosophical match? One. Second, have you ever failed at this? And how do you know that you made a wrong bet with a hire?
Failed several times. I think instinct is, if somebody has 100% instinct, then I would want to meet that person and like really learn from him. Like, instincts will always hit or miss. So I have had several failures. And start with that.
My wife has. Maybe you should meet her.
Oh, she does? Yeah. I think most wives do. Like, yeah, I will.
Yeah. Sorry to cut your trail, but yeah.
No, man. No, I was just trying to gather my thoughts on this. So for me, attitude comes in multiple flavors and design is what I've learned more as an outsider from in a true design sense. Like, I'm the typical engineer interviewing a designer. Like, how much ever you try to cross the bridge, you have a little bit of that objectivity in your head with respect to how you're looking at a person. Attitude has come in multiple styles and flavors for me. So, but one thing that has almost perpetually worked is I don't like God sense. So that is one thing that I look for. Like, there are a lot of designers who are really good, great craft, great resume, great portfolio, a great, body of work, but will speak like. So I don't like anybody who comes to my company for an interview and say that you are broken and I am the guy who's going to fix it. Mm-hmm. See, with that one statement, he disrespected my entire team. He will never be successful in my team. That statement is so loaded that person actually believes that your existing people won't be able to do this job. Hence, you need me. I don't need you. You might be great, you might be right also, but I can't hire you. See, the first thing I require is like the people that came before you who still have a job here are great people. The first step is to understand and appreciate that the existing people in a team are great people. Like, if you don't think the existing people are great, don't interview with me.
Sure.
They don't come and say, Tumhara cups up. Like, a lot of people speak like that. Like, I looked at your product, it's all over the place. I need to first come in and no. The product is all over the place. I don't think you can fix it. Like, if 10 of my people haven't fixed it, you are not that one guy who just landed from heaven who will fix my problem. So that is my first red flag. I won't hire that guy. Maybe he's right. Maybe he will fix it, but still won't hire. That's because that person will innately not jive with the team. And that person always will put his views and his need to fix problems above the journey. For me, you should join a design team for the journey. Not for, again, I go back to my previous statement, I'm being a little redundant here.
Okay.
You don't come and work here because you saw a problem that you want to solve. Like, I call them this world-saving personas. I try not hiring them. Like, the world need me. The typical Batman style designers that I meet, I typically don't hire them. They're great. They have a place in the world and not in my teams. So the first thing that I look for is that.
Interesting.
The second one is a bias. I like designers who have deep respect for engineering.
Sure.
And I like engineers who have deep respect for
designers. Yeah, makes sense.
I really want designers who actually think that I am just rectangles and squares and circles if a guy is not going to code it up. I think it's a very, very important trait for a designer to have to know that. You don't have to worship the engineer, but just understand that here is a guy who will make your vision to reality. Without that person, your vision may not become a reality unless you learn to code yourself, unless you are that crazy design code geek who can build everything that you can think in code. How many are there? Very few are there. For the rest, you have to work with the front-end engineer. And that respect is very, very critical for me. So that attitude is something that I look for. How much do you respect your peer group? The other group also, product managers, gade hai. I don't hire them either. It's almost what is it that they really contribute on? You can say that as a running joke once in 12 months. But on a daily basis, if you have a personality which says, ye to main hi kar leta, then that's something which I typically try to not look for. The fourth and fifth are, I try to look for some interest in art. I'm not saying you need to be an artist or something, but the point is, artists are sloppy people, but their craft will have finesse. Most of the musicians I know don't take a bath, and they are young. But what they produce will be very crafty, right? They will still go and fix for the last note they have played wrongly, and they will redo it. And that whole purpose, you would have just had one chai the whole day and probably would have brushed his teeth, but he will fix that note. And I think that is very critical in design, because eventually, if you don't have a last mile attitude, you will never build great products. So I have an issue with 70% karke measure karte hai. It has a place. I think it is a very viable way of building products. It is a very successful way of building products, not for me.
Sure.
I don't want to put 70% and then the customer will tell me whether he likes it. That's almost like me composing a song and recording it on a phone mic and sending it to you कि गाना पसंद आया. नहीं. मैं गाना सुनाएगा तो पूरा record mix master करके ही सुनाएगा. You understand what I'm trying to say? Whether it will become hit is immaterial to me. I don't like to evaluate on the go, which also sort of will tie back to my question. What is music to me? Music is art. What is design to me? Design is art. For me, if you don't have the perspective of art, you'll not create anything beautiful.
Yeah.
If you don't create anything beautiful, it is a lost ability. It's a lost chance. If every day you have a chance to create something beautiful, you don't capitalize on it, that day is lost. So I look for that. Innately, somebody who has passion for beautiful things has a passion for the beautiful, uncertain subjectivity of beauty, right? You don't know why something is beautiful.
I have to stop you. Kedar has a wonderful anecdote from his conversation with Bibi Doshi. I think, Kedar, this conversation would be better if you shared it now.
Yeah. In fact, that reminds me of one more thing, actually, which is the great... not that I'm comparing this conversation to that, but in one of the Marathi literature, you must have heard of Bal Gandharva.
Yes, right? Yes.
And Bal Gandharva was one of the the greatest Natya Sangeet wala artist, and he used to wear real ornaments, right? And on the stage, he didn't have the money, he didn't have big budgets, but he used to do whatever it takes to wear the real sari, the real ornaments. And people used to ask him why you're doing this, and he said that it's not for the audience, it's for me first, and then when I wear those, I feel nice, and then I can reflect and I can express the way which I want it, and that connects with the audience. So it was very, very profound of him doing that.
It is true. It is so true. And there's also an analogous statement Steve Jobs made, right?
Yeah.
Often Steve Jobs gets quoted for what is convenient, but this is convenient to me, so I quote this. So Steve Jobs has this line which says, if you are a great carpenter who's building a great cupboard, you won't put a cheap piece of plywood at the back of it because nobody's seeing it.
Yeah.
You will still put a great piece of wood over there because you know it is there.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's a great thing to emulate, because most of the times people actually ship absolutely deplorable shit and say design is not how it looks but how it works. Brother, you have it all wrong. Like तुम्हारा पूरा concept ही all over the place है. He didn't say that.
Yeah.
Like, after saying design is not how it looks, how it works, he actually spent a ton of time researching the aluminum casing. He did all that and said it. Like he actually thrown thermocol paper over there and said, like, चलेगा देखता है उसके बाद में paint करता है.
Like look at the quality of form that they produce, right? Then you put function before it, it's fine. But their baseline is high. Like you
Absolutely.
can't. Yeah.
Which is why he said it, right? And honestly, form and function is for another full podcast, right? Like, who wants anything without any function? I have not met anybody who has actually bought anything without a function. Like sometimes you even buy the most esoteric objects. The function is that it is esoteric. It still has a function. I have never acquired anything that I can call useless.
Sure.
It may be useless from a utilitarian view. Like, I want to show you this. Like, this mic is a handmade Neumann.
Sure.
It doesn't work as good as this one. I still have it.
Yeah.
And it's not connected. Like sometimes you buy stuff, you do stuff because you want them.
Look, and Harish, look at designers' work desks, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not full of beige mugs. Like everything has expression to it, right? So I also find this debate a little stupid.
True.
But sorry for interjecting, but we need to bring this train back to hiring thing.
And I apologize. I tend to
No.
speak longer. I'm sure you will find sense out of it and trim it. Yeah.
No.
It's
going to be up as it is. So be ready for it, and it's great. I mean, it's great to hear your perspective.
And I mean, the two of you, like I have followed both your work, and Kedar, we have spoken also.
Yeah.
It's just a pleasure to speak, man. I think these are conversations that I crave for, and most of my conversations don't follow this trail, and it sometimes is not. I answer standard questions, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah, man. Like that's why I think podcast is a great medium, and that's why I think Twitter conversations are absolute shit, right?
Because you can't express. I think this is fantastic. I don't want to sound patronizing, but I am personally enjoying this a lot, and I'm happy that I've given the space to say what I wanted to say always without
truly.
But
I mean, and coming to the one more point which Abhineet spoke about, which is actually the last point, but we'll circle back to a couple of hygiene questions later. But just to continue the train, so I'd interviewed Balkrishna Doshi, one of the legendary architects. It was the 100th episode, and when I went to his office, it was really beautiful, Sanat in Ahmedabad. And I asked him, like, why have all the cities started looking the same? You see the same steel flyovers, you see like KFCs and the way glass buildings and everything the same, right?
Yep.
Like, is this an RCC problem or what is the problem? To that, he gave a very poetic and a very romantic answer, which has stuck with me. So in case if I publish a book on Audiogan, that's going to be the first page.
Sure.
So he said that because architects are no longer poets.
Sure.
Yeah. And I wanted to understand from you, because obviously we are following you in some places and pretty much at times you get trolled or you don't get the right thought out because there's been so much chaos on the social media and people are saying art is not design is not art, and you see those typical debates everywhere, right? So if you compare that part and then your philosophy, you have anything more to say in terms of why do you see art and design to be the same thing?
Yeah, so for me, I think art that way is very personal, right? What is personal to you is not what is personal to me versus while design is a more profound expression, primarily because there is an easier way to empirically verify if that it actually touched people. Because art is a little more, how do I say it? Art is a little more ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like, my art may or may not have touched you, but if I design touched or did not touch you is very easy to measure. The beauty of design is its measurability. Beauty of design is that it is empirically possible to establish whether a piece of design that you put out in a physical or a digital medium, whether it touched a person or not. How does it touch somebody? Like, sometimes it is just his innate ability to get to solve a problem or get past something that he wanted to do. Sometimes it is just NPS.
Yeah.
Like, you just felt good. Like, see, for example, I watch these things all the time, reels all the time.
Yeah.
It solved no problem for me. If it not just solved any problem, just solved it for Instagram because they now know what I like. Honestly speaking, it did not solve. But I have fairly high NPS on that product because I feel nice using it. Now, how do you quantitatively say whether, and then you can only put mathematical metrics, how many tiles per second, how many unique videos per minute. You have engineering ways to quantify it. For me, art and design converge at a point where your purpose is to touch somebody. You can't be chowkidar. You can't be ticket collector. You can't be train driver. See, those guys are doing a job. They will take you from point 1 to point 2. That can't be the reason why design exists. Design has to go way above and beyond that. That's where art comes in. Like, it's about reading a poetry and composing a poetry. I could sing a song to you. Like, I could say, Jeevan se bhari teri aankhein majboor kare jeene ke liye. You will get the meaning. It's like it will serve its purpose. It will land to you. But when Kishore Kumar sings that thing, you can't say, ye gaane se kya hoga. Like, that is a problem. The perspective should not be poetry. No, it is not. It's a composite object which includes Kishore Kumar's voice, the poetry, the orchestration, who is on the screen. For me, that is what design is, which is why you can't speak design without speaking visual design. Eventually, what touches you is the most important part of design. And visual design is the closest to art. If you can think about it in the whole realm of design, visual design is the closest to art. Which is why I believe without good visual motion design, you are reading off a paper. Now, if you argued with me, reading off a paper, say, मैं poetry समझ जाएगा, sure. लेकिन मैं तो किशोर कुमार से गवाएगा ना. Like, that is my perspective of design. Like, just because reading is enough is not good enough for a lot of non-designers to simply say इतना काफी है. नहीं है काफी. बाकी कौन करेगा?
No, I am taking a slight tangent again for one more Marathi great stand-up comedian, and he was the most talented writer, director, actor, Pula Deshpande. Yeah, and in one of his talks, he was saying that I hate people when they say "Kai fayda," which is "Kya fayda hai?" Right? And so a lot of people come to me and say, "Arey, wo tune kiya, usme kya fayda? Usme kya fayda?" And then they just keep cribbing the same point, right? Yep. To which he gives like a real big jab at it, saying that, "Yaar, wo bahar शिवाजी का इतना बड़ा आयन में स्टैचू है, क्या फायदा? इधर एक बहुत प्यारा सा बगीचा है, उसमें सुबह फूल खिलते हैं, क्या फायदा?" मतलब ऐसे लोगों को तो मैं ले लेता हूँ टाइप्स. That was the kind of So it's utilitarian, and then there is beauty. I think that's where
I think so. See, especially in digital products, right? The utility trumps everything. Like, you can't create something very beautiful and you can't even click it. Then you die, right? It's not like you must be like monumentally stupid to do that. But if you have actually solved for it, and secondly, sorry, I have to say this because you gave me a chance to speak. I think designers today, I hate saying this, and it is, again, I'll be disliked for saying this. Two things that they tell me which like really vexes me. I get really angry. The user doesn't care. Ye kisne bataya tere ko? Like, I keep hearing this. You know what? The user doesn't care about all these things. Who told you? तुमने खुद जाके यूजर से पूछा, do you care about this? यूजर ने नहीं बताया. Just because you're not able to do it, you hide behind that your own innate inability कि मतलब उसको नहीं चाहिए. तेरे से नहीं हो रहा है, उसको नहीं चाहिए नहीं. You are not able to do it is not an excuse to say इसको नहीं चाहिए. Like, the point is, like, you're able to do it, you will do it. If you're not able to do it, that's a much more honest position to take. I am unable to do it, hence I did this much. It's almost like saying, like, I want to really paint right now a beautiful painting. लेकिन मेरे से हो नहीं रहा है, इसलिए दुकान से लिया. Like, that's not by saying paint करने की क्या जरूरत है, दुकान से ले सकते हैं. You can't say that. Like, the point is, somebody who can paint will paint. Somebody who can't paint will buy. So the first point is, like, why the user doesn't need is a standard problem I see in design fraternity generally. All this stuff users don't need. Who told you this? I mean,
Harish, sorry to interrupt, but there would be certain known problems, right? Like, people don't like to read long formats. Now, this is a known problem. So do you challenge that as well?
No, I don't. I actually don't challenge anything that the user does not want to do. To be very honest, I love it when somebody came and told me what the user wants. And I will build everything that the user wants. and I might do 10 things more. Don't come and tell me कि ये 10 करने की क्या जरूरत है. User doesn't care about all this. So this is a standard thing. No, why do you want to animate the button? User says, I will still animate the button. Button है उधर, जिसको animation नहीं चमकता है, देखने मत देना उसको, क्या problem है? नहीं देखो, मत देखो. There might be 1 or 2 guys who still want to see it. So don't give me this purpose argument to me कि just get your 5 things right. ये तुमको किसने बताया कि यही 5 things है? Like, I almost always ask this question, like, just because something did not work with you, don't unify that problem and democratize it like the whole world feels it. Like, maybe because of, for example, I can't play first-person shooter games. I can't play them. Talent nahi hai. I can't go and complain to the designer of PUBG and ki simple bana do. नहीं बनाएगा simple. There's a reason why it is like आधे लोग जो करते हैं उसको चमकता है, तेरे को नहीं आता है. I can't just come and say तेरे लिए road rash बना देता है. Like, for example, the simplicity argument is also that. See, for example, if you don't innately believe humans are intelligent, if you don't believe that your user is smart, see, I dislike design premises which begin by saying user is innately dumb. नहीं है. User dumb नहीं है. User खतरनाक smart है. तुमसे ज़्यादा smart है. Give him smart systems to play with, and he will innately get the serotonin, dopamine dose of actually figuring out something. He will stick much more. Like, he will actually see, whenever humans are, especially men, man, I have to say this, we like to fidget. I have just realized that most of the times unboxing videos are typically posted by people who have a general aptitude to fidget. Design should let people fidget. That is when you'll be remembered. मतलब तुम इतना invisible बना दोगे, तुम घर के light का switch बन जाओगे. Do you know which is your switch for tube light at home? भूल गए होंगे अभी तक. Because muscle memory is working. हाथ ऐसे जाके रात को ऑन कर दे. You don't design like that, man. You will not last. Because the next day when a smart system comes, you will forget that switch. I have this analogy that I typically give. Like, piece of land मिलेगा, build Taj Mahal so that flyover जब बनना होता है, they will not break it. उसके around बनाएंगे. तुम DLF का अपार्टमेंट खड़ा कर दिया, बुलडोजर सीधा जाएगा क्योंकि यूटिलिटी बिल्डिंग है. यूटिलिटी बिल्डिंग को तोड़ने में किसी कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. That's how your app goes out of the mind space of people and of the screen. Sometimes you have to have things that people come to do, even if there is really no purpose around it. Like, if you don't build for that fidgeting, you will not succeed. And those fidgetings don't have rational reasons. They're just fidgets.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. Kedar, this is probably one question I want to ask. Harish, let's assume there are some young designers listening to this and they are sold with our pitch that design has to have a higher purpose. It's just not, point A to point B. Mm-hmm. But when they look out at the market, try to select a company where they want to work at, you'd said something. I also tell designers this. Look for a company where your craft is a differentiator, right? Where the value of a craft can be a moat. You happen to work at Cred, and I can clearly tell from the conversation that that's the direction that you're going in. But most of the companies in the market are not like that. Is that a lament for you? Do you think that contributes to how designers are becoming? Right?
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest, Abneet. Yeah. Like, I think, every function in tech, let's not even go to the other place, the answer will become too long. We have all spent time in the industry and gotten to got to do whatever little we got to do and gotten to where we have gotten. One thing I'm sure we have all learned is that there are certain things we can do and certain things that we can't do. I think most of the great mentors I have had are people who are very proud to tell me that I can't do this, Harish. While that kid out there who is just 4 months into the system can do this a lot better than me. Most of the great leaders and great mentors I had the deepest of good fortune to work with have demonstrated this personality. Where the attitude was to say that I have certain abilities and somebody else has certain abilities. And when I put these two abilities together, we have a very strong, unified skill, which will help us produce something really great. Somehow through the last decade or so, it has sort of given away that people who don't have certain skill ganged up and said the skill is not required. Yeah. And those people fill the market and call themselves designers. Like I have this analogy, people hate me for this. An air guitarist is not a guitarist. For me, my UXer hai is a bit like saying my air guitarist hai. तुम UXer नहीं है, तुम designer है. Designer मतलब पूरा डिजाइन चमकना है तुमको. रिसर्च से लेके सर्वे चलाने से लेके लेटर स्पेसिंग सेट करने तक आना चाहिए. नहीं आएगा, there is no problem. Sometimes you visual design craft, you are not lucky to be born with it. Some people will never get it. But don't form a consortium of people who don't get visual design and say कि उसकी जरूरत नहीं है. That's almost like saying मेरे को नहीं आता है, so important नहीं होगा. I think the market is filled with people like that. I have to say this. And the more design schools have made entry into design courses, engineering has resulted in more and more designers who actually think craft is unrequired. Like, I met a designer who only knows how to do personas. I said, like, life में कभी design किया ही है? नहीं, मैं ये, and what are you? I am a UXer. मैं बोला नहीं है. You are at best a survey runner, or at best a behavior scientist. तुम design team में क्या कर रहे हो? Like, this is my problem. So my thing is, the lament is that it is not that everybody needs to be great illustrators. I am not. Some of us are not. Some of us will never be. I, for one, never will be. I don't think illustration is not required. That is the difference. I meet a ton of people in the market who say, इन सब की जरूरत नहीं है. All we require is every app looking, वो material design का sticker sheet download कर लेगा, थोड़ा time मिलेगा तो color change कर देगा. The same goddamn high saturated material one palette across all apps with the call to action button in the same color as the header. I used to bleed through my eye. And everything had the same shadow, everything had the same roboto typography. It's good for Google that the designer at Google will get a promotion because he created a system that the whole world adopted. But it's a sad outcome for people in the market. कि तुम्हें इतना भी नहीं है कि वो बटन को थोड़ा चेंज करके तो देखो. Like, you want to look like a Google app or what?
उन्होंने shape का token डाल दिया है, तो you can change the value now और shape change हो जाएगा.
So I mean, at least material 2 is really good. If you actually see the palette is far more liberal. When if you actually see, even Google realized that it was becoming too boring. It was becoming too regular. When I was at Google, I remember speaking to the material design team. They themselves had this view that it's becoming too similar that it becomes really hard for even companies to kind of to create value out of it. So for me, my lament in short is that it's okay to not have certain skills. It is not okay to normalize a lack of skill. My lament is the normalization of a lack of ability. Like,
yeah, sorry, I'll interrupt again. So, like, I might just counter you for me to understand better, right?
Sure, man. No, even otherwise you can counter me. I'm always happy to hear a diverse perspective.
So I agree that the material design palette or whatever works. It's designed also lends itself to the OS. So we have this saying, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. So contact list hai, dialer hai. These are pretty standard templates which are there, which people are familiar with and used to. So one side we also have an argument saying that design, as in people are habitual creatures and they like to be whatever, like simple, not coming in the way. So how do you defend that argument?
Sure, good question.
Am I like yeah?
I can. Yeah. You go ahead first. I had a defense for you.
Please go ahead, guys. Yeah.
Super. So I'm gonna use this, Avneet. Damn cool. I'm gonna use this one. No. So I think it's a very pertinent question. Like, I mean, innately humans don't like change. It is true. Like, especially changing a habit comes at such a high cost, and most of the retention businesses, including the company that I work on, is heavily dependent on habit. And if you don't build habit, you fail. So I think there's no two ways to the fact that, but it's also a bit of a BlackBerry to iPhone argument, if you know what I mean. QWERTY physical keyboard was a habit, but somebody had to break it and put it on a touchscreen and prove that it is better off that way. My point is, if you get too addicted to riding a habit, it will stifle your own ability to do something which could be actually better, which is what I think we as designers stand for. I think once a habit is established, if we are all riding, I think we are doing gross disservice to something that we all are. I think our aim is to actually just look for what is the next big thing that you can do, which could probably make it a lot better. It'll come at an incremental cost. It might come at a cost of switching. It might come at a cost of unlearning, relearning. But post that relearning, will that person's life be 2x better? 3x better, 4x better is the only question I ask. Sometimes reconciling to a habit will result in us not innovating enough. That's what I will say. I will not counter what you said, Kedar. I have no counter to it. I think it is important to not question people's habits, because if you're changing your app every 2 weeks just because you can, then you better be building for your family, who's also funding your app. If you're building for real customers, it's important to understand and empathize with what they stand for and what is it that is helping them stick to it. But not keeping in mind that what you have may not be the best you could do is all I would request. I mean, as in, is material design the best possible way to build an app? Gaming guys have proved it is not. Not a single game was built on material design. There are horses for courses. Like, you just need to understand whether what your motors and what you're really trying to present to your customer and how much do you believe in your solution and your journey. As long as, if you don't have the conviction, then I think it's good to ride the habit. If I were in a new problem where I have no knowledge about it, I will be very confessional. I will ride the habit. I don't think I'll go and break it. I don't think riding the habit is the problem. Not wanting to go beyond riding the habit, which I think nicely ties to what Abhinit typed on the...
Abhinit, you wanted to different further? Because I have actually found a synthesis of this conversation, but yeah, go ahead.
I'd much rather Harish said it. It's okay. You're the guest.
About?
Yeah, so I just typed out, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but put some thought in the wheel cap at least, right? Like that's what I was saying.
Oh, okay. That way. No, but what I was... So I
make it yours.
Correct. No, I think the underlying thread in this is more of a rebel, which is probably seen in music, seen in design, and a lot of people have this rebel, right? So I long time ago, I read this beautiful quote which said, when you don't know Zen, rivers are rivers, mountains are mountains. When you are learning Zen, rivers are not rivers, mountains are not mountains. And when you have learned Zen, rivers are rivers, mountains are mountains. So I think every artist or every designer or every person who's trying to challenge the status quo is in that center bracket where, yes, there are rivers and rivers, but why should I care? Like, it's there, right? I'll try and invent, I'll try and innovate, I'll try and create something new. Have that basis and then again probably land up in, I don't know whether should we land up or it's a long journey.
I always like to take this example. I think but the quote is actually pretty fantastic. Again, very true to artists at least. Like, I don't know how much about design, but for artists, I think it's a very eloquent sort of quote. Like, I always wondered how. By the way, I just wanted to check with you. How do you switch your profile on Gmail if you have 3 email addresses?
Swipe on that avatar.
Swipe on the avatar. Every 10 guys I speak to, only 2 know about it.
Yeah, I've heard from double tap or something like that. Yeah,
people tap and choose. But the moment you put a coach mark on that, you're actually killing that feature. The beauty is discovering that feature. You know what I mean? I mean, there's still an implementation that you can click and choose with the standard list, but that swipe, once you have discovered, makes you feel like God. Like the day I found it, I tweeted about it. I got like some 200 people like it, and people came and said as if like I am. And then of course people came and said, no, I found it 3 weeks ago. All that is beautiful. That FOMO is fantastic, right? Like, you are not the first guy. I found it earlier. Just because you have more followers, you get all kinds of responses. But the point is that form of curiosity that humans hold, right? Like, if design is not considering curiosity, then it's a pretty dull design, in my opinion, Kedar. Like, if it doesn't push the person to innately feel curious. Like, we did a stupid hack. Stupid not because the hack was stupid. It was just very inert sort of thought. We just shipped a new UI on Cred, and we just needed a way to actually get people to wait for like about 4 seconds before the new SDK loaded. So one of the guys in my team said, why not give a drag UI where the person has to drag and I'll run an animation for 4 seconds and then it switches to the new UI. And on top of that, Kunal actually came and said, make the person burn 5,000 coins and say you need 5,000 cred coins to actually get the new UI. The funniest part is anybody who got access to it did it. Everybody who got access to it did it. They incurred a cost. And then they came and ranted on Twitter by saying, oh, tumne mere se 5,000 coin ये shit UI के लिए तुमने मेरा 5,000 coin लिया. For me, that is a huge success because the innate curiosity probing worked for me. The point is like, so if people had said, iske liye 5,000 coin dega, then I failed. Everybody who got access to it used it and then came and lamented, I have no problem. You understand what I'm trying to say? The better solution would have been whenever you are ready, I do a clean switch and the person sees the new one. No, sometimes you have to make people work for shit. And they will remember you for that. Like, I mean, I know we are over time, but I don't necessarily believe simple things are the best things. I mean, I don't enjoy simple things too much. I like simple things for things that I want to forget. Like, for example, switching on my AC or like opening my car boot. I like them simple, but things I want to feel nice about, I don't like them too simple. I actually want to feel that I achieved something. Like, if you have a utilitarian purpose to everything, then you'll have to make simple, make it simpler, eventually make it vanish. And can you imagine a life where everything was voice? I think we are getting there. Like, you have no screens.
Yep.
It will be a dull world.
Yep.
Trust me, the world will find a way to make it less dull. Where you don't have a screen, you can just speak to your house. Bring me my tea and it brings tea. Switch on my TV, it switches on TV. There's like no UI, no haptic surfaces, nothing to touch and feel. I think we'll all go crazy, man. Like, it'll be very simple, but we'll go nuts. I get scared thinking about it.
Yeah.
We'll be selling voice skins like we used to sell Winamp skins.
Trust me. We will probably have like, Alexa packs, which will sound like Shah Rukh Khan, which will sound like Amitabh Bachchan, which will actually speak like your favorite person, because otherwise it's a pretty dull world. Think about it. And I'm very worried about things becoming dull. Even though it's a little hard is better than dull. I don't think designers should have a purpose of making things dull.
Yeah.
That'll be bad.
Yeah. Quite refreshing to like hear so many different perspectives. I think I'm also quite sold on the philosophy. The way you have put it, it will take some time for to sink in, because it's conditioning, right? It's how who your mentors are, who you have brought up with.
Perspective.
And then perspective. Yeah, it's a perspective. I would put it that way. Yeah.
Your perspectives, they needn't be right.
Correct.
It is just a vantage. Like, it's like from the angle I am standing and looking at the mountain, what I see is different from the vantage that somebody else is looking at it. As long as both of them are beautiful, we are good.
Yeah.
It should not be like from the vantage that I'm seeing everything is beautiful, from the other vantage you're looking everything is broken. Then we have a problem.
Yeah.
I think different vantages are good to have, as long as all vantages give you a good view of the valley.
Perfect.
Otherwise, it's not called a vantage anyway.
Cool. I think we are good. I mean, there were a bunch of questions, but I think the way this conversation has flown, it's quite enriching in a way. So I would keep the hygiene questions probably for some other session we do later.
It's better this way, Kedar.
Yes, definitely.
Sure.
Cool. Harish, thank you. Thanks a lot for giving your time. It was wonderful talking to you. And the best part was to generally understand, because me and Abhineet were generally discussing and saying, यार अलग-अलग designers होते हैं, अलग-अलग perspectives होता है, and AudioGyan I think would be like a good place to just document those rather than
Thank you for letting me talk. How often do you get to speak your mind like this without really being subjected to heavy judgmental conditioning? I'm so grateful to you all. Thank you for letting me speak.
And Kedar, this is officially prologue, or are you gonna end it? Because I have some controversial things to say after this.
No, so we'll say thanks and thank you for listening till the end. And currently I'm heading the design team at Jupiter.money, which is a neobank, and we are hiring at all levels. So if you can also follow AudioGyan on Instagram, or for other GAN sessions, you can go to audiogyan.com. And you guys want to have any plug? Is Cred hiring?
We're always hiring. So if you guys like what we have built, and if you guys believe that there is something that you can do to make payments, credit cards, lifestyle, e-commerce, lending, utility payments, you have a passion to make any of these beautiful, any of these more enriching for people that use them, hit me up. I'm Harish at Cred.club. Always looking to speak to talented designers and always hiring. So looking forward.
Awesome. Abhineet for Gojek.
We're also always hiring. You can go to career.gojek.com. We have all the listings there. If you face any issues, feel free to DM me on Twitter and I'll sort it out for you.
Cool. It's Abinitial.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
And that's it from today's GAN session. For show notes and more GAN, visit audiogan.com. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to check our other interesting podcast on IVM Network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or any of your favorite podcasting apps. To stay tuned, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at IVM Podcast. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at Audiogan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.
Season 3 of Echoes of India, your favorite history podcast, is back on the IVM Podcast Network. I'm your host, Anirudh Kanasetti. Join me on a journey through the wonders of early India as we explore the centuries between Buddha and Ashoka with critical research, empathy, and great storytelling. Along the way, you'll hear from all the vibrant peoples who shaped our world, from monks and farmers to warriors and emperors. New episodes are out every Monday.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcast's website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.